Hey you guys, this is Trey. Welcome back to the channel. And I wanted to talk about how Square Enix failed us. I mean, since what, 2013? Um, we really been failed by Square Enix. And I know what you guys are thinking. Wait, what? We got Final Fantasy VII Remake. But see, that was based off a good video game. And it's just being remade to look better on next gen console. So, that's a pass. And really, what really has Square Enix given us that was great? You know, they butchered Final Fantasy 15 or Final Fantasy 13 versus 15. Then we get Final Fantasy 13, 13 2, Lightning Returns, Final Fantasy 13. Then we get that dismissible Final Fantasy 14 to the point where it almost caused Square Enix to go bankrupt, that they had to destroy the game, create a storyline, destroy the game to rebuild it into Final Fantasy 14 and Realm Reborn, which is a good game, but still, like, what has we been getting good from them? What, them Tomb Raider games? Decent, but it's been the same nonsense with them. Like, by the second game, Laura still ain't Laura yet. Like, how much more origin do we need? That's like having Batman in the third movie. He decided to finally put on the cowl after he do all the stuff in the third movie, the first three movies. Like, come on, what's the whole point of that? This isn't some kind of TV show or anything. We kind of want to see a progression, and it felt like she didn't really go anywhere. Yeah, she did a few things, but not really. And then, of course, you have that dismissible Marvel Avengers. And we should have known when we saw the trailer of Marvel Avengers that it was hot garbage. I mean, hell, they gave up halfway on Final Fantasy 15. They put it out there, then they had all this stuff that was supposed to be planned for it. Then they canceled it, and then what? That's it. Then we get Kingdom Hearts 3. What was that? Like, are you kidding me? We waited 15 years for both Final Fantasy 15 and Kingdom Hearts 3, and they were kind of both disappointing games. I mean, at least Kingdom Hearts was a little bit better than Final Fantasy 15, but let's be honest, the rehashing of Frozen and Tangled, um, barely doing anything with Twilight Town, half of the story needed to be patched into a DLC, then to still get left on a cliffhanger. What was that? Like, come on now. The third game should have wrapped up where we got a good wrapped up ending, and then of course we look forward to the fourth game. But it's like, what was the whole point of that? You know, it felt like you might as well had just ended the series at Kingdom Hearts 2 then, if you were just gonna do the same nonsense. You can tease another villain, but this whole thing about going after Sora, now we have a spin-off title again, Melody of Memories. Like, come on, what has Square Enix really done? We've letting them have this long drawn development process time just for them to kind of take shortcuts when it comes to the end product. I'm surprised Final Fantasy VII Remake was even finished. And I'm talking about the first part. I already knew it was going to be put into parts anyway because the game was already 3 disc originally in the PlayStation. So, of course, it would make sense that they would do the same thing in the PlayStation 4 and probably 5 remake. So it wasn't, a big deal or whatever. But I'm just surprised that the game was even finished, because the stuff that we've been getting from Final Fantasy, I mean, not Final Fantasy, excuse me, Square Enix in their games just haven't been, you know, well received. And I think what really killed it now at this point that people are kind of like waking up to it was literally Marvel's Avengers. Yes, Crystal Dynamics is a subsidiary to Square Enix, but Marvel gave the rights to Square Enix, and then they gave it to Crystal Dynamics to develop it. So, I mean, what happened to all that Final Fantasy stuff? You know, why didn't we get that epic grand adventure game or whatever like we normally get instead of some half-ass rushed product put to shelves for $60? Like that's another problem. Like we're paying $60 and we're getting less and less content nowadays, especially when it comes to these long drawn out games. I'm sorry, if your game is in development for 10 to 15 years, everything should be in it. Everything should be in it. No downloadable content, no patches, none of that kind of stuff because you had 10 to 15 years. I'm sorry. Final Fantasy 15 and Kingdom Hearts 3, Marvel Avengers, you know, all of these games that Square Enix did should have been completed. I remember back in the day before Final Fantasy 13, before the PlayStation 3 console launch, we used to get full games from them. Now we barely getting anything. We might have got like a final mix for some of the games, but it's funny that they put all the time and effort and resources into building back up Final Fantasy 14 and Realm Reborn, but they didn't do anything like that for 15 or Kingdom Hearts 3 or the Tomb Raider games or even what was that darn thing? What did I say? Avengers. I already said Avengers, Kingdom Hearts 3, and it doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry, $60 is a lot of money nowadays, and all these companies trying to go up to $70. Okay, but is the game going to be complete? Like now we got what, Final Fantasy 16 coming. Okay, but is the game going to be complete, or is there going to be another development hell cycle? And even if it is complete by 2021 or 2022, are you going to be asking us to pay extra for extra downloadable content? You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry, Square Enix have been doing good games, but the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4 generation, they kind of failed, to be honest. I'm not saying that the games aren't great or whatever. They all have their little good moments or whatever, but the way that we have to wait for how long the games is, the cancel projects, the half-ass releases, the games needing patches, the shortcuts to these games. I'm just confused why we keep trying to like excuse this nonsense. And that's a real shame, especially going into the PlayStation 5. We shouldn't be worried about, man, if I pay $70 for this game, am I going to have to pay another $30 just to get the content that should have been in here from the get-go? That's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, if Square Enix could put all that time and effort into building Final Fantasy 14, A Realm Reborn, and Final Fantasy 7 Remake, where was that with the other games that they had? And I understand Kingdom Hearts have some Disney restrictions or whatever, but they should have did something better than that. Not putting the main story at the end of the game. Like, that makes no sense. That feels rushed and sloppy. That stuff should have been dispersed throughout the entire game. Or with Final Fantasy 15, you had this big open world at first, and then halfway towards the end of the game, then you want to close off, and then you want to go into this linear path or whatever. Come on now, that don't make no sense. Now you either gave us the open world, or you should have stuck with the open world. But to give us this open world, then there wasn't hardly much in the open world to do. Then you put us on this linear path with this nonsensical story, and then for half the downloadable content to be canceled and then put into a book. Like, come on, what was that? You already had the first set of DLC that you asked people to pay for. Then you canceled season 2 of the downloadable content. Like, come on now, what was that? You might as well have just went ahead and went with Final Fantasy Versus 13 then, if you were just gonna half-ass with Final Fantasy 15. And then with the Tomb Raider game, it's still the same thing. She go to the exotic land. Some kind of retarded accident happens. She gets separated from Jonah or whoever she's with. Then she has to solve a puzzle because it's an ancient prophecy thing or whatever, and she doesn't know if she should be able to do it, if she could do it or whatever, and stuff like that. And then end up doing everything anyway and realizing that she's stronger than she knows. Okay, we done did that for the first 3 games. Now, if we're gonna get a 4th game, can she start doing backflips, acrobatics, her twin pistols, her most iconic things that she normally is known for? Can she stop being timid by now? Like, come on, we need a badass Laura Croft who ain't afraid to take no names. Like, thank you. And then with this upcoming Kingdom Hearts stuff, okay, once we get to Melody of Memories and whatever the next game is, let's wrap up some stuff. Let's not wait until another 4 to 3 years for a solution. Because don't get me wrong, I like the Kingdom Hearts series, but after waiting for so long for Kingdom Hearts 3 and then to get what we got is kind of crazy. And again, I can't fully blame everything on Square Enix about Kingdom Hearts 3 because I know they have a partnership with Disney, but they got to do better than that. They got to do better than that. They got to be better than that. you know, so it's just kind of funny that we're seeing this stuff happening from Square Enix, which I would have never guessed that I would even be talking about this nonsense from Square Enix. I expect better from Square Enix because they have delivered for so long that it's kind of hard nowadays to look at these recent games and seeing how much they didn't put no time and effort into it. And that's really the sad fact because I know they can be better and they should be better. But at the same time, we can't excuse it neither because games are going to start going up on us and it feels like we're paying more for these games, but we're getting less content. And that's what I don't want Square Enix to be doing. I don't want them to focus on doing shortcuts. And it felt like that's what they were doing with these games so far. Let's pray that when Final Fantasy 16 come out, it'll be something good. Let's hope that they could get Crystal Dynamics to fix Tomb Raider and Marvel's Avengers. But we really need a change, and we can't keep being okay with the laziness of these companies, especially not a company like that. I give them slack every once in a while, but not waiting for games this long or whatever, because at this point I kind of want them to go back to the well and fix all of these games I mentioned, make them better than what they were. you know do a whole revamp of Final Fantasy 13, do a whole revamp of Final Fantasy Versus 13. To be honest, let's see what this original one is. Finish up Final Fantasy 15. Make sure Kingdom Hearts 4 or whatever the next Kingdom Hearts game is expansive, no shortcuts, more growth in the world or whatever and stuff like that. No waiting until close to the end of the game to add all of the content in there, and no patches at the last minute neither. That's a big no as well. And making sure that you can do a good shooter looter game without the nonsense. But yeah, tell me what you guys think about the whole nonsense with Square Enix. Do you think we're tough on them, or we're not tough enough, or whatever? Comment in the comment section below. If you guys agreed, let me know. If not, tell me why you don't. And like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Peace out.